right, so we'll go ahead and get started today with 228. This is our last official lecture of the semester, which is awesome and scary at the same time. We will do the full course today. On Monday of next week, I'll be around basically for problem solving. So I'll be here the full time. So I'll come in at 11:15 or whatever, and I'll stay through 2:10 to help you get through anything that you need to get through, any problems that you might be having with renderings and whatever. So I'll be here. That then will be the last official day of class. So there won't be any meeting on Wednesday of next week. Everything is due on Monday night at midnight next week. That's December 5th. If you have a bunch of finals that day and it's just not working in your schedule, I know some people have already emailed me. If you want to email me and request an extension, I'm fine to do that and give you an extension until Wednesday night. But communicate with me if you want that extension. Okay, so we're going to start today. And let me go ahead and share my screen so that we can get rolling here. And give me just a second to be organized. All right, and we're going to be working today with our same model, but this time we want to actually cut a sectional line drawing through our model. So we did do sections a while back, and you could actually probably use your section drawing or your section model that you already created to create the line drawing version of it. But I'm going to go through the whole process and show you how to create that section. This is, again, the sectional line drawing. So we'll be doing the same process that we did with the elevation and the floor plan, only this time we'll be doing it in section view. I think sections are probably the most important drawing that you can create in terms of a 2D drawing. They really accentuate and highlight what the space is like in a particular building. And as a result, I think it's an important one to learn to create, especially straight from Rhino like this. So much like the south elevation view, we could actually use my same south elevation view to create this section. But I'm going to start and walk our way through the whole thing. So let's go back into my, let's get into a perspective view here. Go to set view, and we'll go back to perspective. There we go. And the first thing that I need to understand is where exactly am I cutting through my building? And so as I start to do that, I want to go ahead and create a very large plane. This would be a vertical plane that runs through my building, so I can place where that section needs to occur. So I'll start outside here. And again, I really don't need, I should probably back up here. I really don't need the ocean right now, so I could actually turn that ocean off altogether. So let's go ahead and turn that one off. And then we can get in here and create our vertical plane. So I'm starting at the bottom here, and I'm going to draw, whoops, not a picked vertical plane. There we go. My C plane must be off. I apologize for that. Let me go back to set C plane, world top. And let's try that one more time. Vertical plane. There we are. And there's that large vertical plane. I want to make sure that that plane does, in fact, intersect all of my geometry. So let's go ahead and move that down. And then we want to control where it's falling through the building. So right now, it's over here. We want to move that over so it's closer in the building here. And we want to think about where exactly do we want to be slicing through the building. I always think when in doubt, stairs are a great place to slice through a building because you see the transition, the vertical transition through spaces. So I think probably somewhere right about there is a pretty good place to cut our section. So you can see I'm placing that yellow line right there as a way of deciding where that section is going to go. And now that I've created that, right, there we are, I want to go ahead and do a split. But before I do that split, I want to make sure that I'm doing a save as. So I'm going to go to file and then save as. And we will call this master site ocean section drawing. Oops. Perfect. And I'll go ahead and click on save. And there we are. So now it's time to explode all of those blocks. So we can go ahead and type SEL block instance. And remember, this is super destructive, but we'll type SEL block instance, and then we'll type explode. And this might take a little bit of time. You can see my layer stack just got really nasty. I'll deselect so that nothing's selected, and then type SEL block instance again. And then we'll go ahead and explode that couch. I'll hit escape so nothing's selected, SEL block instance. And the goal is to get to the place where we have no objects that are added to the selection. So that's good. I'm going to go ahead and delete this layer right now. That was from a previous thing. Okay. So now that I have that, I probably should give myself a layer called section. Layer called section. Let's do a sublayer for section plane. And we'll put this plane on that layer. So let's go ahead and change object layer. And there it is. So now it's time to do the split. And again, I'm using that large plane to do my split. So I'm going to go ahead and type split. There you go. Selects objects to split. I'm going to type in all. I'm going to select them all. I'll press enter. And then when it says select cutting objects, we're going to select that plane as the cutting object. And then we'll go ahead and hit enter. And sorry, I shouldn't have selected that as part of the selection here. Let's do this. Let me go into wireframe mode. Here we go. We'll type split. I'm going to type all of my building, and then I also want the terrain here. Other little bits of terrain, perfect. And I'll hit enter, and then I'm going to split it with that big plane. There we go. Now it's doing the split process. So this does take a little bit of time to accomplish. Okay, so now I've done that split. Now it's time to look at which side of the building do I want to modify. So this side here is the side that's ultimately going to be the see-through material. So in order to better select that, I'm going to switch from the right view into the left view. So let's go to set view and then left. It flips the building so that I can make my selection much easier. So at this point, I can go ahead and select everything right up to that split line, right up to about there. And that's going to select this entire half of the building. Now, I don't want to select the glass. So the glass is going to need to be transparent. So like I did last time, I'm going to have to look through my layer stack and find layers that I'm using the glass. So there's glass, and there's my glass railings. And I think that's it. I'm going to make one more selection here because I accidentally deselected a little bit. There we go. So I have everything here except for the glass. Those layers have been turned off. And I'm going to apply my see-through material like we've done several times. Oh, I need to make V-Ray my current renderer. V-Ray for Rhino. There we go. And then we'll open up the V-Ray asset editor. And under materials here, we need to make sure that my see-through material is loaded. So I'm going to go ahead and open that see-through material. I did download it and it's on my drive here. Oh, sorry, it's in resources. V-Ray, and I keep it under special materials, and there it is, see-through, right there. And I'll go ahead and open it. There's my see-through material. I can then right-click and apply it to the selection. So now that whole side of the building is going to have that see-through material applied to it. Now for the other half, remember, we want this to end up being more of a clay rendering. This is not a photorealistic rendering. So I'm going to create a basic generic gray material. So let's go here. Let's go to materials. I'm going to choose generic. And I'm going to rename this to be clay. And then let's go ahead and apply kind of a light gray to it. So I could do almost white, somewhere in that ballpark. So what I need now is to select the other half of the building. Well, it's going to be a lot easier to select the other half of the building if I switch my view from the left view into the right view. And now I can select this half of the building right up to my split line, like that. And this half is going to have that clay material applied to it. I don't have to worry about the glass because it's all turned off right now. So we'll go ahead and right click and say apply to selection. And now that side of the building has all clay on it. I do have to manually do this versus using the material override that like we did in the elevation view, because we obviously have to apply the see-through material to these objects as well. Okay, so those are done. The only thing left would be the glass. So I'm going to go ahead and turn back on the glass and switch over into the right view here. So, excuse me, the left view. Here we go. Oh, sorry. I had to sneeze. Okay. Let me select this whole side of the object right now, like that. And I'm going to go ahead and type hide just to temporarily move that. It looks like I have a little bit more here. Hopefully that was assigned to the see-through material. I better double check because I'm not sure I got it. So let's go ahead and right click and say apply to selection. And then we'll go ahead and hide it. Oops, let's try it one more time here. Hide. There we go. And the reason that I did that is that now when I go to turn the glass back on, so there, and there, all of this glass, I can then apply a nice transparent material to. So we'll select that. I'll hold down Shift and we'll select those little bits of glass that are showing right there. And then we'll go ahead and apply transparent material to those. So I'll create a new material. Again, it'll be a generic material. I'm going to call this one transparent. There we go. And I'll adjust the opacity of this material so that it's just 100% transparent. And we'll go ahead and right click and say apply to selection. So now all of that glass that's on my section will be just completely transparent. I won't be able to see it at all. And that will help when shadows are cast through my building. The remaining glass, I'm going to go ahead and leave it. Rather than turning it transparent, I'm going to leave it as glass so I won't do a selection of it. I'm going to go ahead and type show to bring back the rest of my building. And now it's time to set up an actual view of this particular section. So let's go to, let me double click to get out of this. We'll look temporarily at the section view here. And when we create this view, obviously we have our old view that was here as part of our elevation, but we could start that by going back to that particular view. So let me go to set view, and I already had my south elevation view right here. That's a pretty nice view, so I don't really need to change it. But in the interest of going through the process again, I'll go ahead and go back through it. So we'll go into set view. Let me go into my, this is going to be probably the front or the back view. Let's try back. That's not correct. It would be the front. Let me go to set view, front. There it is. I would get this set up the way that I want it. So it looks like that. Then we're going to want to save this view as well. So let me click that down arrow. We go to set view, named views. And we're going to call this one section section drawing. Sure, why not? Section drawing. We'll say okay. So now that view's saved. That's an important step. I have this little rectangle from before. I'm going to go ahead and delete that so that it doesn't interfere with what we're doing, because I don't want that to distract anybody. So we'll go ahead and distract that, or delete that. Excuse me. So I have the section drawing view showing. If I go to set camera, show camera, it's not going to appear in this view, but it will appear up in the perspective view. There it is. So now that I have that showing, I can use that to create the rectangle viewport boundary. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on my point snap only. There it is. And then I will use my rectangle. I'm going to do the rectangle from 3 points, snap to that point, and then I'm going to come down and catch the point that's in the very middle of my view. There it is. We can confirm this looks right by going back to our section drawing view, and lo and behold, it's exactly 1/4 of the overall view. So let's go ahead and scale that. I'll go ahead and type in scale. And we're going to scale it by 2. So I'll type in 2. That just doubles the size, and it matches up perfectly with my viewport. There it is. So now that that's been set, we can jump back into my perspective, or excuse me, my section drawing view. There it is. And it's time to start thinking about doing the Make 2D and performing the rendering. So let's go ahead at this point and save it. It's always a good idea to save before we start doing any renderings or Make 2Ds. And we'll go ahead and say yes. And now it's time for me to go ahead and do the Make 2D. So with nothing selected, I'm in this view. I'm going to type Make 2D. It's going to ask me to select objects to draw. I'm going to say all. I'll hit enter. That selects all of my objects. I'll hit enter again. And this brings up the 2D drawing options. So again, we're using our view. I'm going to go ahead and include the hidden lines this time. I don't need the tangent edges, and I'm not going to maintain the source layers. There's just too many layers to go through if I do that. Although maybe I'll do it just so you can see it. So I'll maintain the source layers, and the rest of these are all okay. I'll go ahead and say okay at this point, and we'll let Rhino start to process the Make 2D. Oh, wait, hold on. Forgot to hide the front half of the building. All right, well, that's why I always save first, just in case. All right, so I might have to actually quit Rhino at this point. That was my mistake. And now that I've quit it, I can open up that drawing again. All right, come on. All right. So the good news is that I was able to save everything. Let's make this big. Let's go back to set view. And we'll go back to our section drawing view. There it is. Looks like I must have expanded my toolbars just a little bit. So let's go back to set view. Section drawing, there it is. Okay, so in order to do this make 2D though, I should have hid my part of the drawing. So let me go to set view. I'm going to go back to the left view. We'll zoom in here. And I need to hide that front half of the drawing. So I'm going to go ahead and select all of it right there. We'll get up nice and tight to that line. There it is. Oops, looks like I went just a little bit too far. All right, we'll go ahead and hide that. And now I have that front part taken away. So with that front part taken away, I should add that you may want to fill in below your section planes. That's entirely possible. So you might want to fill in inside the walls, down below the dirt, etc. I'm going to do the make 2D without doing that. But when we do the render, we might want to add it in. We'll take a look at that point. So let's go ahead and open up that section drawing view. There it is. We're going to go back to our set view section drawing, make sure it's set, and then we'll go ahead and do the make 2D. So I'll type in make 2D. We're going to select all. I'll hit enter. And we're going to turn on the hidden objects, and I'm going to maintain the source layers just as an illustration for your purposes. And then we'll go ahead and say, okay, this time I won't try to cancel it because it's set up correctly, and we'll let it run. So this could take several minutes while it's working through its process. So bear with me. Okay, so it appears to have finished. So in order to see that, I'm going to look at it in the top view. I hope. There we go. So we'll look at it in the top view, and there it is. I can go ahead at this point and do some trimming. Let's go ahead and type in trim. And we can get rid of some of these lines that we don't need outside of our view. Maybe. So nice when it takes time for me to finish it. There we go. Those are trimmed. Let's go ahead and trim these guys. All right, a couple more to trim. Go across those. That one. And then we'll do that last one right there. So once that's done, I can select just our view here. So we click off so nothing's selected. I hope. Okay, and then I'm going to select just that part of our view here. I do need to include at least this line here and here, because that's part of my topography. And then we'll go ahead and we will export that. So I'll go up to the file menu and I'm going to choose export selected. And that export is going to go into Adobe Illustrator format. And so this would be my section. And I should probably put it in a folder. So let's go there. And let's create a new folder for a section. And under our options, we're going to do a preserve scale of 48:1. Again, that's 1/4 inch equals a foot. And then we'll go ahead and click on save. Default options here are fine. We'll go ahead and say okay. And that then writes our Adobe Illustrator file. In the meantime, it's time to come back and look at what we can use as an underlay for our drawing. So I'm going to go ahead and type show, and we'll get the rest of our drawing back. And then I'll switch to the Arctic mode here, and we'll take a look at our building. So it's looking like we're not seeing everything that I'd want. So let's, I have to take this big plane out. So let's go here. Let's turn off that section plane. Where's my layer for section? There it is. And I want to turn off the glass because that's in the way right now. So let's find our glass layers. Glass railing. And we've got our window glass. There we go. Now we're kind of seeing into the building. So like I said, in this scenario, you may end up losing parts of the building. You may want to fill those parts back in. And in all reality, this isn't turning out as well as I would like. I'm missing part of the building right here. I'm not quite sure what happened in that part of the building. So I'm going to rely more on the rendering in this version of it. The other option would, of course, be to go back to our view here and to hide everything on this side. I'll go ahead and type in hide. Didn't quite get everything. Let's get a little bit tighter here. Here we go. We can hide that. And then maybe this will look a little bit better. Back to section drawing view. I'm going to switch over into artistic for a minute, just to force it to redraw. All right, while that's catching up, I'm going to go ahead and open up Illustrator and we can look at our drawing in Illustrator. So let's open up Illustrator. There we are. And let's go ahead and go to open. And let me go into where I saved it. And there's my Illustrator file. Let's go ahead and open that up. Excellent. And so now we can adjust the artboard. So I can click on the artboard settings. We can come over here and we can work to adjust the artboard. I'm going to hold down the space bar and we'll move this over to right there as well. And now that I've done that, we need to go through and start to identify. Now, as I said before, in our layers, when we do it like this, we end up with a whole bunch of layers. And it's much harder to deal with in terms of selecting what's visible and what's not. But sometimes people like to be able to go in and see a particular part of the drawing. So I don't know what this is. I'm picking this at random. Okay, this is part of the couch, right? So I could select that part of the couch and then I could edit that part of the couch specifically. So that's one of the advantages of setting it up like this. I'm actually going to go back and, assuming I've gotten back, there's that view. I like the Arctic better. There it is, but we're still missing that part of the building. I don't quite understand that. But I want to do that make 2D one more time because I had that big plane showing. So let's go back to our shaded mode like that. I'm going to go back to my make 2D because I wasn't happy with the end results. I'm going to delete that and all of the sublayer objects. There we go. And we're going to do a new make 2D. If Rhino hasn't quit on me. So we'll type in make 2D, select objects to draw. It's going to be all. There they are again. I'll press enter. And we're going to do it again, this time with hidden lines. But instead of maintaining the source layers, I'm going to go ahead and just do from our input objects. And we'll go ahead and say OK. And this will again take about 70 seconds or so to process. So what you can see happen here is that all of these were marked as hidden. They're all kind of gray. And the distinction between the visible and the hidden, really, it didn't help me out much. So I think it's worth redoing it so you guys can see it done correctly. So I'm going to go ahead and close that. We don't need to save changes. We're going to override that. And we'll come back to our Rhino and we'll let it finish its make 2D. Again, this is going to take a minute or so to finish. Almost there. If you're struggling with your make 2Ds, if for some reason they're not working, you can turn off things like couches because those sometimes are what bogs down the make 2D. But I think it's, in my case, they're not too complicated and we are going to get there. All right, I think we're almost there. All right, so it finished. And now we can double click and get into our top view. And there it is again. And like we did last time, we do need to do a little bit of trim. Oops, helps if I type trim correctly. And we'll get rid of those 3 lines. Good, and we'll get rid of those 2. All right, we'll get through those. Hard because it's a painfully slow process. And 2 more, 1 and 2. Okay, now that's done, I'll hit return to finish. And then I can actually select just that part. I do want to add to my selection my contours here. So let's go ahead and select all of those. Got a few more little lines. I don't think I'm going to end up wanting those, but we'll go ahead and select them anyway. And then we'll go ahead and export this. So I'll go to File and then Export Selected. And this is again going to Illustrator. I'm going to use section again. Let's go to our options, 48:1. That's good. And we'll go ahead and click on Save. Do I want to replace it? Yes, I do. There we go. Perfect. So now I have that created. We can open that one up in Illustrator. So we can come back here and we can go to Open, and we can open up that section again. There we go. That looks much better. Let's adjust the artboard. So I'll click on the artboard and we'll adjust it so that it matches up our corners here. And there's our first one. And we'll adjust it so that there's our second. Perfect. And we'll come back and continue doing some adjustments on those section cuts. But in the meantime, let's go ahead and get some outputs for our view here. So I'm going to double click out of the top view. We'll go back to this section drawing view. Let's go into the Arctic mode. Let's see what happens. Again, I don't like how it's doing that, but we'll go ahead and save this anyway. I'll go here and I'll go to Capture to File. So Capture to File. And again, we need to increase our resolution. So let's do it at Custom. We're going to lock the viewport aspect ratio, and then let's bump this up to maybe 5,000 or so. And then we'll go ahead and say OK. And that'll save our line. I did notice that some of my curves are showing up. So let's modify that first. Let's go up to Tools, Options, and then let's go to View, Display Modes, and I'm going to go to the Arctic display mode. And I'm going to come down here and uncheck the curves. So we get just the kind of background here, like that. And then we'll go ahead and export that. So I'm going to go to File and then Export, Selected. Oh, excuse me. That was not what I meant. We're going to go to this little down arrow, and we're going to go to Capture to File. There we go. And we'll choose Custom. And we're going to lock the viewport ratio, and we'll bump the size up maybe to 5,000. Perfect. And I'll go ahead and say OK. And we need to save it on my flash drive. And let's put it in here under section. And there's that view capture. It's not as ideal as I would like. So let's try it as a rendered version. So I already have assigned all those materials. Let's go ahead and show the rest of the building. Like that. And I want to make sure that Good. Let's turn back on the glass. Perfect. The glass is back on. We'll double click on the section drawing here. And we're going to go into my set view. And I want to go back to the section drawing group to make sure it lines up correctly. And then we're going to go ahead and render it. Doesn't look that great here. However, when we go to render it, it should turn out pretty well. Is my section plane turned off? Let's make sure that's turned off. Good. Is there another section plane here? Hold on 1 second. I want to double check. Oh, there's another one in there. So let's go ahead and delete that one. That's probably what was causing the issue when I was in the Arctic mode. I didn't catch that. So if I went back to Arctic, yeah, that's a little bit better. So let me re-export that. Let me turn off the window glass. Let me turn off the window glass there. And we're going to do the, oh, the railing glass is still off. Perfect. Let's re-export this. So I'll go down to that little down arrow. Oh, come on. There we go. Let's go to capture to file. And we're going to save this. We'll go ahead and save OK. And we can just override it right there. Perfect. And then let's actually do the rendering of this. So we'll turn the glass back on. There. And let's go ahead and switch back into shaded mode so you can see it. There it is. And then we can go ahead and do an actual V-Ray rendering. Before I do the V-Ray rendering, I do want to confirm that my settings are correct. And where on earth did my V-Ray toolbars go? That's always nice. Well, we'll just jump in and do the render and see what happens. So, okay. And now I have to figure out why my see-through isn't applying correctly to this. So let's double check that. And let me jump back here into my left view. Let's make sure all of this, except for the glass, there we go, has see-through applied to it. Where? Yeah, V-Ray for Rhino's there. That's weird. All right, and let's double check that see-through should be working. I'm going to right click and say apply to selection. Good. And the rest of my building should have had that clay applied to it. So we'll double check that that was correct. Although the rest of the clay seemed to be okay. Oh, you know what might have happened? I may have had the override materials still on. Let me go back into those settings. Asset editor. I bet that's what it was. Let's go to settings. Yep, that was it. So let's turn that off. Perfect. So let's go back to my section drawing. Let's go to set view, section drawing, make sure it's set, and then we can go ahead and render that one again. And we'll give that a little bit of time. While that's rendering, I'm going to go ahead and go back to my Illustrator file right here and bring in that first Arctic file. So let's go to File and then Place. And let's bring in my second view capture. There it is. And we'll place it. It's going to go in this upper corner right there. And we're going to have to do a little bit of resizing on it. So let's do Control- to zoom out. And we'll shrink this down. I'm going to hold down Shift to maintain proportions. And get lined up there. And then it really needs to be on its own layer. So I'm going to click this little plus sign to create its own layer. And then to change the layers, I have the object selected. I will drag it up onto layer 3. And then I'm going to drag layer 3 below my other 2 line drawings. So now if I press Control-0, we can zoom in and see it a little bit better. And I have just that little bit of texture behind it, and it helps a bit. It looks like it might be slightly off. Let's move it, nudge it over right like that. Okay. So now we need to go through and make some corrections. So the hidden lines, I'm going to select all the hidden lines by clicking this right next to where the line layer is. That should select all of the hidden lines. Once all of those lines are selected, I need to go into the properties and I need to change 1, the color, and 2, the thickness. So let's change the thickness to 0.25. And let's change the color. I'm going to go over here and do it from here. And let's change it to kind of a medium gray, something about like that. So now all of those hidden lines are set up in a little bit thinner. Then let's go in and let's pick all of the visible lines. So all of these lines. And we'll do the same kind of a modification. On this one, we'll call them maybe 0.8 to start. And our color, we'll want to make them black. So let's make sure those are all set to black. And those should stand out just a little bit more. So the hidden lines you can see are kind of behind the glass, for example, and some of these other little pieces. So again, we can select all of those. I could take it a step further. I could make them dashed lines. So I could come over here to the stroke and I could say, let's make it a dashed line. Should have saved before I did that. Okay, while this is coming back, I'm going to jump back over into my Rhino and let's see how that rendering is coming. All right, so we're definitely making some progress on the rendering. You can see that it's rendering out. My light in the pool is still on. That's turning out really, really bright. So I may stop this. We'll close it, and then I will select that pool light and just go ahead and hide it. I could also hide these little rectangular lights because they're not adding anything. And we'll go ahead and hide those. And then we'll come back and render that one again. Let me go to my asset editor. We'll make sure that my render output size is good. So let's go into render output. I want to match the viewport, the size, all of that looks good. I can go ahead and give it an autosave location. So let's go. Right here. And this would be my section. I'm going to call it section clay. And yeah, I'll save it as a PNG. That's fine. Perfect. So now when I go to render, it'll autosave as I'm working on other parts of the drawing. So we'll let that, build itself back, but now we won't have that light in the pool that's kind of changing things there. So let's jump back over into Illustrator, see if it came back. There it is. Let's check my stroke. I want a dashed line, but I want it to be 2 points, not 22. How about 2 points? And then my gap, we'll set the gap at 1 point. And we'll set my gap at 1 point. Perfect. And once it comes back, I'm going to save this. And you'll see our first version. There we go. And so from here, I can go to File and then Save. Let's make sure it's saving in its correct location. We'll go ahead and click on Save. Now, of course, I could spend more time and I could start to fine tune what's happening on this particular file. I could also do a live paint. I could fill in regions if I wanted to kind of black things out. Remember, I didn't have all of the walls as solid. I could do that after the fact in Illustrator if I wanted to. I could also come in and delete individual line segments. So if I didn't like this line segment, for example, I could start to kind of correct things and delete objects, delete lines, etc. So I could go through and take care of those kinds of pieces. So that's just an example, right? I could shorten that one up here. Right, we can delete that. This line is an extra, we don't need that. This is an extra, we don't need that. You know, we don't need this. So there's fine tuning that you can always do. This would have been a little bit cleaner had I filled in those objects to begin with. But at least you can start to see how this is pulling itself together. Let's get rid of that. Get rid of that little piece there. So you can kind of see what I'm doing, okay? So we could, and you can actually see the little hidden lines in here. I think those add a lot. This one shouldn't be hidden. There's always those mistakes that you're going to have to make corrections afterward. There's a few other lines up here. If we wanted to do where we filled in regions, we could do that with a live paint. That is certainly something that I would encourage you to do if you've worked in Illustrator before, because it can really enhance the overall piece. All of these little lines there, those stairs, those should all be on the hidden line layer as well. So I have to do a little bit of cleanup, but you guys can certainly see where I'm going. Let's jump back over and see how the rendering's turning out. So we're getting there. This obviously is going to take a little bit longer to finish. I won't make you sit and watch this finish out, but I will finish it and then drop it in so you can see the final version a little bit later on. So I know I'm running a little bit short on time, so I will stop for now. But I do want to make a couple quick comments before we end. I know some of you know this already, but I've decided to take next semester off. I might take the whole next year off. We'll see. I want to take the moment to kind of acknowledge that I really appreciate all of you and the last 15 years consecutively of teaching these classes. So it was a pleasure to do that. I appreciate all of you. But it's time for me to move on and get a few other things done that I've been neglecting. So this is it. This is my last one. So I appreciate it. And you know, I wish you all the best, certainly for the spring, and we'll see what the fall has to bring as to whether I come back in the fall or a little bit later on. So anyway, that being said, we have our check-ins today, so I can help you with anything that you need to, you know, to get through today. Also, I'll be here all day on Monday. So if you need to come in and you need a little bit of extra help, no problem. If you want to like come to the morning session on Monday, I can send you guys that link, or actually maybe I'll just post it on Canvas so that you guys have that link, because obviously both my classes will be available and doing this kind of troubleshooting. Okay. So that being said, let's take, I don't know, a 10-minute break or so. We'll come back at 12:25 and then we'll get started on whatever troubleshooting problems you might have.